A huge thank you to Christina there for her moderation from Cointelegraph. Now it's time to take a look at one of the fastest growing niches in the world of cryptocurrency and emerging tech. We're talking NFTs and also how they're applicable into blockchain and onto DeFi in particular. So let's bring on our next set of panel guests. Okay, so we have a very full panel here. Fantastic. I think this has been the most populated panel that we have had so far, and it's a perfect conversation to be having. I was so excited to bring you all on for this talk. We're talking about the fact that NFTs have huge potential, from digital kittens to complex financial products, but how can they be used in DeFi? So what I'd like to do, first of all, is just ask each of you to give a short introduction in 2 sentences to yourself, your organization, and what brings you into this emerging tech space. Maybe we'll start with Ben and we'll work our way around.
Thanks, Jess, and thanks for having us on today. Ben Lakoff, business lead at Charged Particles. So we take NFTs and we enable you to put things inside of it, one of which can be DeFi assets. Zach, you can go next.
Hey everyone, Zach Burks, founder of Mintable.app. We are a NFT marketplace, started in 2018. Been around in the NFT space for a while, and we got some pretty cool tech.
Oh, hi.
It's like the average family. We just go up and down. Who goes next?
Cool, awesome. Okay, my name is Mary, co-founder of Rangers Protocol, and we are the infrastructure for the metaverse in the future. So basically, we are the first one who can realize the NFT cross-chain with the historical data retaining and also support for the complex such as games or other NFT-related applications. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you go, Jesse? I'll go last.
Awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jesse, also known as Golden Cross on Twitter, and I'm the summoner of Avagachi. And what we do is DeFi staked cute little ghosts powered by the Aave protocol. So yeah, that's it in 2 sentences.
Thanks for having us, Jessica. It's like the good old days back in the ICO boom and many nights in Malta. So it's good to, we haven't joined one together in a while. My name is JD Salvego. I'm the founder, CEO of Anarchy X. We're an open social gaming economy based on DeFi. We have a what we call a GDEX protocol, which is decentralized finance gaming platform exchange. And we produce social NFT games based on DeFi, and then our protocol hosts a dev engine and some other stuff. And we like to make cool designs, as you can tell with my background. So we like to have fun. It's probably why we have the coolest panel, because we're all gaming people. No offense to the straight DeFi people.
You know what? I'm so pleased with the panel. Everyone seems so well expertised in NFTs as well. So I know we're going to have a very hot conversation. We've got 30 minutes to kick it off. So I'm going to jump straight in. Actually, I'm going to start with you, Ben. And I'm actually going to ask you for an example of an NFT use case into DeFi, because I think from an integration aspect, that is one that people may find quite challenging. There might be some hurdles to overcome there. So I'd love to get your impressions to start off with.
Yeah, sure. So I think, I'm not sure the listener base here, but it's important to note that NFTs are not just art. So NFT is a token that's non-fungible, which means it's a unique token. So when you think about NFTs as a unique token, it kind of broadens the perspective of what an NFT can be and then how that could be used in something like DeFi. So if you take a ticket to an event or a e-gift card or more financially complex as like a bond, these could all be represented as NFTs. So the convergence of NFTs and DeFi become a lot more relevant versus when just thinking about, oh, like my piece of art connected to DeFi. Also, I mean, highly relevant within this group is in-game items can be represented as NFTs. So when injecting these things with DeFi, as many of us are doing, it provides a lot of flexibility. So I'll kick it off with that, more of a semantics to start it off.
Amazing. And as we do have kind of a gaming collective group there, I think one question that would naturally come then when it comes to NFTs turning into DeFi is when it comes to the market value, a market value of NFT, as we've mentioned there. How could that actually be put into perspective? And would there be any challenges that maybe comes from DeFi when it comes to traditional cryptocurrency tokens? And that's open to anyone in the panel.
Well, one thing that comes to mind and that I think has always captured my attention early on is you can use an NFT to not just be a token by itself, but this is one example of when it comes to valuations, is you can pull value from somewhere else on the chain. Maybe it's ERC20 tokens, and you can actually use an escrow contract to stake those inside of the NFT. And so that opens up a world of possibilities in terms of valuation, where you have a staked value plus the speculative value of this provably rare NFT on top. And there's all sorts of use cases with that. And that's just one of the many ways you could use DeFi and NFTs together.
Yes, I totally agree with Jesse. And actually, we believe that the DeFi will play a vital role in the discovery of NFT value. And there have been great examples, for example, Aavegotchi and also Engine, they are staking some FTs into the NFTs. And basically, actually, we've discussed this for a lot of times, and we believe that to build up a more sufficient mechanism, there should be 3 levels of assessment in the valuation system. And so the NFT value equals intrinsic value plus utility value plus premium. And actually, we have an application which is the cube to illustrate how we build up the whole system. And yeah, if you guys feel interested, I can explain more of what we are exactly doing in this application.
That's interesting, Mary, the way that you break it down with 3 different attributes, right? The intrinsic value is kind of what Jesse talks about with the staking of another token within the NFT. But because the liquidity of an NFT is just not there, and it's a single matched order to a buyer in and of itself, it's always really hard to appraise the value to an accurate level. And so when you look at providing like insurance or loans off of NFTs, you get into this really big headache of, well, maybe a buyer in New York will pay this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's liquid enough to get that in the event of, a liquidation on this loan, or an insurance claim is taken out and we need to pay it out. So that's always a really hard thing to deal with. But you mentioned the intrinsic value, which gives you this underlying kind of protection, where if there's 100 DAI staked in the NFT, then it's at least $100 worth of value to it, which is one way I think that people are probably going to be approaching those unique issues.
Yeah, that was actually one of our key things we were trying to solve with NFTs, because I always felt, from even back in the early days when it blew up with CryptoKitties, it's the price formation on NFTs is all baseless. So I think we're all in the same place in our minds of trying to solve that and understand that. And we ended up going after to create our own economic model, kind of a mechanized socioeconomics, where our user values that are instilled and generated are the ones that create the base value of our NFTs, and also our yield value, rewards value. So we actually had a price formation that was actually based on something, as opposed to just saying, well, I believe this in-game item is worth this. I think this prize NFT that derives this rewards is, is this. And what we found is, even if you look at a lot of the chat groups online, even on Facebook groups, people are talking about, well, how do you price this? Why do we think it's worth this and that? And what we have now, because the tokenization, right, now allows assets, anything really, to become liquid, right? With this baseless price formation, it's actually deliquifying these potentialized liquid assets now, right? Because of this thing. And I think it's an interesting place where we're all going to go for. I mean, I believe only right now, the only place you can, without trying to say ours is really unique and we actually do have a real value, we actually really do what we believe is based on actually real economics of the user generated value. But unless you have Nike, right, or Reebok, like all their pricing is actually based on cost of goods and services, right, materials, everything. Then you have the fiat currency, then you have your margins. That's how they come out with their price. Even on a secondary market when they're sold on, let's say, eBay, there's not friction there. You know why? Because the buyers and the traders, like in a stock market, there's a price instilled with that. And that's what I see now with all the secondary markets is they're not liquid because no one knows what the hell any of this shit is worth. Excuse my French. So
Fantastic French. But you've made a really good point.
I know a few more words in French. If you want to hear it. Just kidding.
Later on in the day. But when it does come to pricing as well, and maybe anyone else in the panel can also chime in on this, has there been any, because obviously we saw a huge surge in the NFT space throughout 2021 alone, let alone in the past few months individually, a price structure that needs to be implemented, or something that does need to have a little bit more of a structured substance, so that we can look at leveraging it a little bit more when it does migrate into DeFi? Is there things that need to be addressed before we make this full move? Because it sounds like it's in motion.
Things that need to be addressed. Mary, go ahead.
No problem. Well, okay. Actually, I think maybe Jesse, you want to, use some examples in your product, and I think Aavegotchi has really done a great job in this, because you have the instinct value, as I mentioned just now. And actually, to reply Zach's question just now, I think maybe I can explain more about the cube. So I think we are trying to solve this problem through many DeFi protocols, actually. Because you can see that during the whole process of the cube, actually it's a Lego on-chain. So all the resources, people are obtaining the cubes through mining, and they are staking cryptocurrencies to mine all these cubes. And in the editor, they can compose the cubes into different NFT artworks. And because the whole process is on-chain, and the NFTs, all the codes of the NFTs are on-chain, so actually the NFT can be adopted in different decentralized applications. So during the whole process, you can see that we are transferring the FT's value into the NFTs to form the instinct value. And also we have the copyright center, because people can quote others' works through buying their copyrights. So they have the utility value now. And in the end, because a lot of people, they are compose different artworks and they are quoting others' artworks, so you can see that some of the artworks have the premium value, because it has a larger scale of a community consensus, and maybe other people just appreciate what you have done. They think that 5,000 people, they have accomplished this artwork is really amazing, so they are willing to pay this in auction. So yeah, basically, I think if you want to use DeFi protocol to form the value of the particular NFTs, you should make this process before the NFT even formed. We don't think that the afterwards process is, make many sense, because if the NFT itself doesn't have value, even if you make it into, make it into more NFTs, that will be the value is not very stable, actually. So yeah, that's what we're thinking.
That's an interesting point. And, Jessica, your question was related to a more sound pricing structure. But what Mary brought up, and what a lot of people, I think, we're kind of grouping NFTs into this general category. But, for example, Mintable is a marketplace. And so we have someone selling like a Ford Mustang right now as an NFT. And so there's an inherent value to that, because it's like an actual tangible asset. And an insurance policy or copyrights or a full-length feature film are all different kind of inherent values that are coming into the NFT that's separated from like art, right, or a game item. And so when you look at a Ford Mustang or a house, like someone sold a house on Rentable or tried to sell a house, they ended up, no one bought it. They sold it privately. But the point is like when you look at something like that, you see, okay, this Ford Mustang, Kelley Blue Book says is 15,000, 20,000, whatever the value is. You look at the copyright and you say, well, this brand is, a global brand, and so maybe I'm going to value this copyright for this term period of, maybe $1 million. And when you look at an insurance policy, there's a market with step pricing based off of your insurance. So you can't really come up with a sound pricing structure for a vague asset class that can be applied to almost anything, right? There's no pricing structure for the intangible items, that like if you're using it for voting, like we do in our DAO, you can't, put a price on the ability to participate in governance, right? Especially with the NFT. Now, we're trying to do that with governance tokens that are ERC20s, right? We have an order book and we can say, well, the market, values this token at this price. But with NFTs, it's just not really possible to do that. And so I think this is where the problem of trying to solve issues like this comes into play, is because you have such a wide asset class. You really have to narrow your focus. Like, I'm going to set a sound pricing structure for insurance policies that are NFTs and only insurance policies. Or I'm going to set it for copyright and intellectual property rights as NFTs, and only IP rights as NFTs, right? Or only artwork.
It's a really good point, Zach. I mean, there's so many types of NFTs. Is like, it's a technology, so it can be applied to so many points. And the last thing I was gonna add on here is, like, I kind of opened up maybe wrong, because not wrong, but we talk about, oh, it's hard to find the liquidity and it's hard to find the value of these NFTs. Now, the ones that Zach just mentioned, those kind of work because you know what the value is. You can point to something. But actually, I think one of the bigger things is that NFTs should be able to do something for DeFi that DeFi can't do without NFTs. And so that's where it gets really interesting, is like, yes, we're taking Aavegotchis and we're staking Aave yield generating tokens inside of them. That's cool. But again, we're kind of like, it sounds like we're having this discussion and using ERC20s as a crutch. And so another way to think about it is, another problem I think we're on the cusp of solving in the space is, okay, in the normal TradFi banking world, you have two kinds of loans. You have collateral-based loans or credit scores, and so you have two ways to access this loan. In our case, on DeFi, almost everything is, what is it based on? It's based on collateral, taking ERC20s and staking them and waiting, making deposits. And so where could we get this other credit score type of scenario coming in without giving up and KYCing and doing all of that? And that's where the NFT as an avatar becomes very, very powerful, because you could start to build a quote unquote credit score or a history pseudo-anonymously by having certain NFTs in your wallet for a certain amount of time. And one quick example of how we're trying to engage and experiment with this at Aavegotchi is, if you have that Aavegotchi, it uses the 998 standard, so you can attach other NFTs and deposit them in. And so we have non-transferable NFTs like Pope badges, the equivalent of a Pope badge, except they're issued by our team, and they go and they're non-transferable once they are deposited inside the Aavegotchi. So that particular Aavegotchi, for the rest of its life cycle, forever, is on chain, and it could be something like competing in a tournament, winning a trophy, or it could be like, oh, I was an LP on, like we have one right now, liquidity providers for uniquely sharding of NFTs. And if you LP'd on that and you have an Aavegotchi, then you were able to get that. So there's a way to build reputation with NFTs that has a value that could make DeFi better than what DeFi is without NFTs involved.
And that's a really interesting ending sentence that I'd like to kind of latch onto and pass around to the rest of the panel, is it can make DeFi better. So I'd like to ask each of you individually, based on what you're working on and your participation in this industry, how do you think NFTs actually could not only work with DeFi, but actually complement DeFi even more? Maybe Ben, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, these are all really good points, but I think the central theme that we keep going back to is NFTs are not just art. It's this gigantic, broad category. So when thinking of an NFT representing an insurance contract, obviously this interplays with DeFi much more than a piece of art would, but the on-chain the on-chain credit scoring represented by NFTs is something very, very fascinating. So like in a pseudonymous way, you can verify that, hey, I'm a good DeFi participant. And this follows you through the internet and lets you interact with these DeFi protocols in a completely unique way based on that little NFT that follows you. So I think, I mean, that's a very broad question because NFTs are so broad and DeFi is so broad. Like both of these are gigantic. I think that the blending of the two will happen in a number of different ways that we can't even predict. I mean, we certainly are starting to point in different directions, but the speed and the velocity, the speed and the slope of these, the innovation that's happening within both of these and the convergence of the two, we're getting really far. But I think the on-chain credit scoring is super fascinating. I think DeFi and NFTs converging into more financial use cases is very, very fascinating. And these are all things that we're infinitely fascinated by as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Zach, I'd love to turn to you now and maybe ask you something, which is, as Ben mentioned there is such a broad element to this, maybe something a little bit more specific to your line of work in the gaming space.
Yeah, so, I mean, NFTs really have that reach that we've talked about. And with DeFi, you're only limited to the creativity of what you want to build because the NFTs allow for a tangibly digital commodity to be represented in a financial ecosystem. And this is something that you're not really able to do prior to NFTs in blockchain. But we've seen, well, maybe not publicly yet, but there are massive global payment systems, you know, some of the largest companies in the world that are utilizing NFTs and building systems to utilize NFTs for internal tools. And these are centralized finance, right, that they're utilizing it. And so when you have an old traditional financial system that can utilize some technology like NFTs and not have to worry about some of the issues that comes with using like ERC20s, then it makes you realize that like whatever you want to do with DeFi, you really can do. And you don't run into the same kind of issues that you would run into with other types of asset classes. So I think there's no limit. Like we don't have a DeFi platform for trading insurance policies, right? We can do that with NFTs. And we don't have one for options that are utilizing NFTs. Actually, I take that back. I think there is one platform that uses NFTs as their option. So you open a position and you'll get an NFT to represent that. And I'm not talking about the Uniswap one. I mean more of an actual leverage option trade. But that is something as well. It's really hard to pinpoint. With Mintable, we don't really focus on a financial aspect. We are that marketplace so that if you have a charged particle or an Aavegotchi, you can trade that on an open platform and be able to offer that to a wider audience. And we specialize in that specifically, right? We don't focus on providing any kind of game or DeFi protocol in and of itself. We just support the ecosystem by providing kind of cool technology and a platform to be able to facilitate that, right? You can think about it as if you have an insurance that you bought on a DeFi platform that's utilizing NFTs for their insurance policy, maybe you don't want to trade on that platform for whatever reason, and you want to take it elsewhere, right? That's the beauty of the blockchain, being able to have this open market of where do I want to use this, where do I want to trade this, what is the interoperability of this item. And so NFTs really power that. Jesse's got a really good point of using, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say a credit scoring based on, to get a loan, but you can use the NFT from Aavegotchi in another DeFi platform as some sort of interaction because it's got that interoperability, right? And this is something that is really unique to, again, you probably are not able to do this in a traditional finance situation.
Fantastic, Zach, thank you. And Jesse, I would love to turn to you now from an Aavegotchi perspective. You've highlighted some real aspects that we could expect to see implemented very soon. What are you actually expecting out of this convergence between NFTs and DeFi in the next 6 months, what are you expecting to see implemented and also used as well? We've got some of the Gotcha gang on the group chat listening in now. So what can we expect to see as the next move forward?
Yeah, so right now there's the first generation of Avogachis that are out. There's 10,000 portals, and it's almost like a deck of cards. You open the portal and the Chainlink random number generator oracle gets called, and then you get a few Avogachis to choose from, and you can only keep one. So about 7,000 of those have been summoned, and now the community that's been since March, and we're looking ahead now. In fact, just yesterday we announced and revealed our light paper for our metaverse. So this actually kind of is another canvas where DeFi and NFTs can blend together. And so it's a virtual world, right? In the vein of Decentraland or CryptoVoxels, except in this case, it's very DeFi. We're saying it's the first DeFi metaverse because each parcel, it's a 721. And the first kind of like use case of that years ago was, oh, I have a 721 real estate, virtual real estate. So I get to build whatever I want with my Lego blocks on it. And that's fine, but there should be more we can do with this. And now that DeFi's come along, we looked at it with kind of a fresh look and said, well, what if there was yield generating and the only way you could get to that yield and access it was by having access to a parcel of land? And so what we have is kind of gamified DeFi RPG coming. And you said 6 months. We think that it will be live by Christmas. And so I guess that counts. Yeah, it counts. So we're pretty excited about that. And there's a lot to explore there in terms of you have to get the parcel, you have to put NFTs on top of that parcel that if you've ever played like a Clash of Clans, casual gaming, these NFTs will let you access the yield that's under the ground there. So it's literally, I think on your previous, the panel just before us, Tyler from Barnbridge was saying, we want to take finance to a point where it's so gamified that, you know, our kids don't even recognize the finance, what we call finance. And so I think that's where we're going with it all when you put it all together and the various projects that are being built out. That'll take a little bit more than 6 months though.
Absolutely. And I like that kind of gamifying finance, gamifying DeFi. That was a great answer. And JD, I'd like to turn to you now because I think our first ever discussion was back in 2017 or 2018. And since then, the industry has migrated quite significantly. So when we look at where we're at now, which is a kind of gamifying DeFi space, what is your expectations for moving forward? You are muted. JD, your microphone's muted.
Sorry, I really should have had that extra cup of coffee. Sorry about that. Yeah, to answer your question, and now it's a little bit late on a joke. I said, well, the expectations are it's going to be a wild ride. Yeah, a lot has changed, man, since back in those days. It's it's unreal what the 17 and 18s used to be like compared to now. So, I think what we're all working on here, everyone working on gaming and finance and seeing this is that, this market really, I mean, look, DeFi has been around, God, how many years? 6, right? Let's be real. It literally, DeFi, in my opinion, blew up. It was accelerated just like the gaming world because of COVID, right? And the DeFi world really blew up because of tokenized junk bonds we call liquidity mining, right? With no use case, a bunch of degens running around saying when moon and give me my free money. Literally, this industry is like so much different than it was. Like, since when did Anon become like the fucking cool thing to do? Excuse my French, but let's be real. I came from the industry long before like the whole degen thing, and I'm like, yo, like, when did it be cool? When was it cool to be anonymous? I'm not even gonna go down this path, whatever. So, like, I think it's a really interesting world. It's like, we have these like junk bonds we tokenize and everyone gets free money, but there's a genius in that right there, right? There's a genius because of the tokenization. And now we have these assets that can be liquid within instantly on a purely democratic place, peer to peer. It's unreal. And you can open up a liquidity pool like overnight. And, especially now with the L2 solutions, which I know most of us are on right now, or whatever. I mean, dude, look at Polygon. How many liquidity mining tokenized junk bonds pools have opened up? What was it, 500? We were just looking at it the other day. because we were doing some research reports and stuff. It was like 500 in the past month or something. I mean, so the future of this is what I believe, finding a use case, a true use case for this liquidity mining, which is, you know, the biggest driver right now of DeFi. And then you have all the lending, which is, I mean, DeFi in general is just, it's absolutely genius. I think the gamification because, you know, liquidity mining is really just reward-based actions. And what is that? You know, that's exactly what gaming is, right? And I mean, I think it's gonna be a wild ride ahead. I mean, it's fascinating. You know what I mean? What we're doing right now, you know, playing games and earning money. Like, who would have ever thought that would happen? You know? So, you know, I'm excited.
Wild ride indeed. And Mary, I'd love to turn to you finally, because we're seeing Rangers Protocol testnet is launching in July. So what kind of things have you learned from the process and implementing?
Yes, yeah. Thank you for asking us. And actually, maybe few people know us that we start to get into the blockchain field with our first game, actually, which is Hyper Dragons. And all the team members actually, we are from the traditional game industry. So our first game, Hyper Dragons, we surpassed CryptoKitties on Ethereum around August 2018. So. And actually, that is the time we started to build RP, Rangers Protocol, and obviously we are targeting about the metaverse, because actually we believe that all the problems we met today, like how can we value the NFTs, what we can use, is all because of the lackage of the usage scenarios actually. So Rangers, actually, we are targeting to serve all the NFT related complex applications. It's EVM compatible, but we have upgraded the virtual machine to support more complex applications. And we really believe that if we have more historical data, like Zach just mentioned, that it's too difficult to describe or to measure all these, you know, non-standard assets. But actually, this price value discovery mechanism has long existing in the traditional industry, like what kind of work you have done and what kind of auction you hold in any exhibitions or things like this. All this history data is very important. So we believe that as long as we collect more data and to sort and take it different data, it is possible to measure all these non-standard assets. So yeah, that is what we will do.
Such an exciting time indeed. Well, that's all that we have time for. Thank you all so much for joining the discussion today. It was actually a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the updates as well throughout the rest of the year, and hopefully we'll catch up on the same panel later on in the year. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, everyone.
What is the future of decentralized finance? Affordable, decentralized, and sustainable. Experience the power of DeFi in ways you've never experienced before. Plenty allows you to use DeFi tools that you've grown to love and adore, but without the crazy fees associated with proof of work. Enjoy sustainable yield farming programs that are cost-effective, liquid, and built on the powerful Tezos blockchain. Visit plentydefi.com now to get started.